I'm checking the tubers, the Dahlia tubers, for which are stored in this sort of test method, with the tubers, as you can see, just laid out in the box on covered with plastic, and then touching each other, which is breaking the rules. And then I've got some newspaper which has been slightly dampened, which is keeping them at the right humidity, I hope. So they look fine. They look fine. This is preference, and they look fine. I've turned them upside down because most of the trouble occurs on the underside of the tuber clump, I've found. So this is a quick way you can just take off the coat, take off the top, and see straight away that everything is in order. They're not drying out and there's no signs of rot. So I'm checking them out and everything seems fine. I have come across a couple of things, and there's one I wanted to talk about, which is superficial mould infestation. The first issue I've come across is in this box of preference. If you've watched other videos, you'll have seen that one of the boxes had a rotten tuber in, and I removed that tuber around about over a week ago, and I marked the box that there'd been some rot inside the box, so I take special care to check that box more often. These are the remaining tubers, and there's one here which is soft, mushy, and going darker in colour, and therefore that tuber is rotten. Again, localised, just the one tuber, so I'm hoping the rest of the box will still be okay. So I'm just going to quickly remove that tuber. I've split it away and it's come away nicely without me having to use the knife. Dispose of that. It's not bad actually. I was going to say there's a bit more perhaps showing there, but I'll just keep my eye on that because I think that's okay. It feels dry. As always, I'm going to sterilise after I've touched the rot. I'm using hydrogen peroxide. My fingers also. So that's just one to keep an eye on. Now in this next box I've found something which requires action, and it's what I wanted to talk about in this video. If we look more closely, I hope the camera can pick it up, but there's some superficial white fungal infection or mould on that tuber. There's the same mould on this thready bit of root which I didn't remove. So that's the same fungus. It's a white fungus, and I can't name it, but I can say that it's not penicillium, because that's green in colour and is harmless. It's not grey mould, which is botrytis, which is a very pathological mould, which occurs on fruit particularly, but can occur on just about any plant material and is very destructive. That botrytis mould tends to occur in warm, damp places, and this is a cold, damp place. So the issue is whether this superficial infestation with fungus is going to do your Dahlia tubers any harm. With fungal infections, fungi are organisms which require organic material to feed. In other words, they don't produce their own food like plants do, and therefore you'll find them on organic material, often organic material which is decaying, and fungal digestion is part of the normal cycle of regeneration. So, but the evidence of fungal infection here, you can just see that, just the end of my finger there, the white, fluffy sort of stuff. So that is the fruiting bodies actually of the fungus, and it's a sign that the fungus has reached that stage of reproduction where it's producing spores. The majority of the fungus will live below surface level, so-called mycelium, which is the main part of the organism, and it's that which is usually digesting organic material and absorbing it, using it as food. So the fact that we've got this superficial fluffy stuff on the top means that we've got an infection of fungus within, to some depth, within the tuber itself. So the issue really is how far in can that mycelium of the fungal infection penetrate, and it's usual to consider that this white mould on a tuber is not going to do a great deal of harm as long as it's dealt with, because the infection is actually quite superficial. It doesn't go down into the body of the tuber. If it were left to its own devices and you took no action, then there's a very good chance that it would indeed go down into the tuber and destroy it. So you can say, from looking at these, that we have got an infestation of a fungus, but it appears to be superficial. The tubers themselves are nice and firm, and they look otherwise healthy, other than the fact that we've got this superficial mould, i.e. fungus, just sitting there. So for me the big message here is that the environment here is conducive towards the mould, the fungus, and I should change something. So what's happening in here, I'm sure, is that the air is too damp, is too humid, and that's encouraging the mould, the fungus to form. So what I will do is to change the environment by making sure that this newspaper, which I use to add humidity inside the box, is not actually too wet. So we can feel the newspaper and get a sense of how much water is in there. This doesn't feel too bad, but I'm going to change this now for a newspaper which has not been wetted at all, like so. Now, because this fungus has reached the stage of producing spores, there's an awful lot of spores going to be knocking about here, and spores from fungi require dampness to germinate. In other words, they require some form of water to be present for them to germinate, and hence that's the atmosphere is too damp. So I'm taking steps first of all to dry it out, and then secondly, what should we actually do with the mould that we can see? Well, it's normal to sort of to get rid of it as best you can, brush it off. What I'm going to do is to remove it as best I can and spray with bleach, and then allow that to dry off. If the infection was worse than this, then a good way of treating it is to have a bucket of 10% bleach solution and dip the whole tuber in the solution, and then let it dry out for a good number of hours, perhaps overnight. So all I'm going to do with these now is brush the superficial fungus off and spray the tuber lightly with some bleach, and then leave the box open to dry overnight, and I'll check it again tomorrow. So we just carefully look at each of these tubers. There is the mould, superficial mould on this one. So I'll just gently brush it away. And this is my spray bottle of bleach. And just gently spray the tuber with the bleach. I'm spraying my hands with bleach, but it's nowhere near 10%. There's just enough drops of bleach in it to so that it smells of bleach. It would be better to wear gloves, but I haven't got any right at the moment. So that one looks okay. That one's okay. Just get the sense of the beginnings of the signs of the infection. The sort of dustiness about it, and it clears once you brush it. I think the main change after I've done this is to change the humidity within the box by reducing the amount of water on the newspaper. I think that's the crucial step here. So if you find this superficial mould on your tubers, I would suggest that you do two things: check the environment and see whether you can make it less damp, and secondly, keep a closer eye on them to make sure that there's no signs that the fungal infection is going deep into the tuber and causing damage. The signs of that would be that the tuber would go soft. You'd feel it going soft, and also perhaps a change in colour. I'm pretty confident that this white mould is not going to cause any internal damage. And now I'm going to leave that box open. I'll just give a little spray of bleach around and about. I'll leave that box open now until tomorrow so that they can all dry off nicely. And then when I do come to pack them all up again, I'm going to use newspaper that's pretty dry actually. And the danger is that the tubers will dry out, but I'll keep a close eye on them. You can see I like my system here where I can just take the top off a box and have a quick look at all the tubers and and I can do 170 tubers here in boxes, and I can get through checking those in usually less than 5 minutes until I come across something that needs action like this. So I hope you found that helpful, and look forward to seeing you again for the next video. Thanks very much indeed.